Bangladesh has formally requested India to extradite former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina back to Dhaka for judicial proceedings. This move comes after Hasina fled to India following massive protests that led to her ouster earlier on this year. This complicates an already difficult situation with Bangladesh. For New Delhi, what's going to happen next? Joining us now, Ambassador Bhashwati Mukherjee. I'm also joined by Major Razaul Karim, Mohammad Kamruzaman, Tara Kartha and Muqtadir Rashid. I'd like to thank you all very much for being with us. Ambassador Mukherjee, is it incumbent on New Delhi to extradite the former Prime Minister to Dhaka?
Not at all. We are under no obligation to extradite her, and I don't think that would be acceptable to any political party in India or to the people of India, given the fact that she is still, in the perspective of those who understand the Bangladeshi constitution, she is still the Prime Minister of Bangladesh because she has not officially resigned in writing as she's supposed to do and give the letter to the President of Bangladesh. She did not do so because she had no time to do so. And the present interim government, which had a term of 3 months, has already exceeded its term and has said that the elections in Bangladesh will only be held in 2025. Under those circumstances, the question arises that as long as the Prime Minister of Bangladesh ousted due to violent protests, which could have actually led to her murder if she had stayed, resulted in her taking refuge in India. We have, in any case, in our civilizational ethos, a practice of not handing over somebody who has been a trusted friend of India on top of that, to a certain and nasty death which would await her if we hand her over. Because judging by the treatment of minorities in Bangladesh, which is continuing unabated, including after the Indian Foreign Secretary's visit, there can be no doubt that she will not be given a free and fair trial. In fact, she could probably be lynched on arrival. So I do not think that the people of India, the political parties in India, civil society in India would ever accept handing her over to a certain death, considering that she escaped death so many years ago when her entire family was decimated only because she was in India at that time. So if being in India inadvertently so many years ago saved her, I am sure we would not hand her over to a certain and nasty death which would await her.
All right. Mohammad Kamruzaman, come in over here. In fact, there are very strong grounds for refusal of extradition in the agreement between India and Bangladesh. A person may not, and I'm quoting from it, may not be extradited if, for various reasons, right, he satisfies or she satisfies the requested state that it would having regard to all the circumstances, be unjust or oppressive to extradite him or her by various reasons, right? One of the reasons is the accusation against her not having been made in good faith or in the interests of justice. This could be a ground for argument. Would Bangladesh be willing to move beyond Sheikh Hasina, who's been a friend of India, to look at the overall relationship between Dhaka and New Delhi?
Thank you, Vishnu. Do you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. Actually, situation is really very complicated, as you have narrated. You know that this treaty between Bangladesh and India was signed in 2013. That was amended in 2016. Problem is that according to this treaty, any crime that is punishable for at least 1 year of imprisonment, and the accusation or cases filed against Sheikh Hasina is mostly murder cases, and especially during her regime, almost 16-year regimes, there were reports of nearly 700 enforced disappearances, nearly 2,000 extrajudicial killings. And during the student protest and mass upsurge, nearly 2,000 people were murdered and 20,000 injured. So the allegations is very gross. So it will be a very challenge for India how India refused the request from Bangladesh, and Bangladesh has these grounds. So the situation will be very complicated, and India must decide whether India is interested to expedite the relationship between people to people and state to state. If this situation is not resolved in a friendly way, because the people of Bangladesh, mass people, want to return Sheikh Hasina for justice and fair trial. What I think is that India should monitor or send their team to monitor the judicial process. But the refusal to return Sheikh Hasina after all those human rights violations will be very much difficult.
I think, I think the problem over here is that India has already been monitoring the judicial processes in Bangladesh. In the case of the priest who was attacked, he couldn't even get legal representation because his lawyers were threatened. He was charged with all sorts of things. So I think there's a real worry about the security of Sheikh Hasina and whether that would work. Irrespective of that, Tara Kartha, you heard what our Bangladeshi friend had to say. Do you believe that there would be justice one way or the other, a fair trial, if Sheikh Hasina was to return, hypothetically?
I'm sorry to say I don't think so. I mean, first and foremost, see, we don't have, as a state, the whole UN law on extradition, on the right of asylum, rests on the fact that everyone has that right. You can't take that right away from anybody, especially in terms of a political exception, what they call, in terms of what's so-called political crimes. There is, however, the other side of it, that if you commit crimes which are beyond that, you are subject, you can be extradited. I mean, that is a cause. But that, again, is the decision of the sheltering state, whether you decide or not. And in this case, the whole question of whether Sheikh Hasina is indeed guilty or not, or is very questionable, given that Bangladesh courts have recently shifted the death sentence of the Ulfa chief from, they've changed it to life imprisonment. I mean, here is one of the top terrorists in the world, if you like, and it's been that thing has been commuted to life imprisonment. They've released people who have been guilty of crimes, killing over 23 people, BNP people have been released by the court. So the court system, in what we are seeing as its proceeding, is, well, it's full of holes. So I wouldn't say that you can, in international law, you can prove that Sheikh Hasina will be given a fair trial when she returns. That is not the case.
Major Razaul Karim, given the fact that we've got important relations, it's not just people to people, there's an important economic relationship, there's an important trade relationship, a power relationship, a strategic relationship. People travel from one country to the other. Visas are important for people in Bangladesh. Is Sheikh Hasina where it all ends for the interim government? Is the interim government not able to go beyond Sheikh Hasina to look at the benefits of the overall relationship?
Yeah, thank you. Very good questions. And I was expecting the same from you. Basically, Bangladesh-India relationship is not limited within the trade relationships. Bangladesh-India relationship is for 100 years, especially our culture before 1947, India-Pakistan independence. Before then, since then, 100 years of relationship we are maintaining, and we are having a very close functional relationship, cultural relationships. Even our peoples are going to India for the treatment, and peoples are going for their shopping, even during the biggest festivals. So
I'm sorry, we've lost that line with Major Raza. We'll come back to him in a moment.
Our relationship.
Sorry, go ahead. Yes.
India, the way we are moving within the country here. My point is here that now the Sheikh Hasina, the concern you are expressing, 2 points. One, you mentioned before a while that you are monitoring the situations in Bangladesh. Thank you very much that NDTV is bringing this issue in a very with a very high importance. And also, Mr. Before me, the lady who was talking, she was mentioning that about the life imprisonment and the penalty. I fully agree with her. But my point is that relating your monitoring and the point she mentioned, did you maintain the same in last or past 15 years? While Sheikh Hasina is given charges for extrajudicial killings, charges against humanity, genocide, murder. So lot of things happened before past 15 years, and there was no rights for the even for the journalist. The journalist could not express their news. They could not report independently. They were totally under the strict rules of Sheikh Hasina regime. So if you bring this concern right now, why it was not done before or past 15 years? So
all right, let's hold your thought there. Let me bring in Ambassador Mukherjee. One sec. You made many points. I'm trying to rotate the strike. Ambassador Mukherjee, I think what the Major says is that India has not been consistent in our policy in the last 15 years. How would you respond?
I don't agree with him at all. And I would like to inform him, he looks much younger than me, that when many years ago, when I was posted in Cairo, I was amazed to find that the assassin of her father, Mujib, had been posted as regular diplomats to the Bangladeshi embassy in Cairo. And when I was first introduced to two of them, I refused to shake their hand because I did not want to dirty my hand by shaking it with an assassin. And they were there, they were given diplomatic passports. So I don't think that the BNP government, which was in power, I presume at that time, had really made any outreach. They had murdered the entire family in cold blood, including her youngest brother, Russell. So I think that Bangladesh should look at its own history and see how consistent they have been. And I would like to remind this young man that as far as the monk who has been arrested, first a Muslim lawyer tried to defend him and almost all his bones were broken. Then the Hindu lawyers were intimidated so that they wanted to be sure there was no lawyer who could give him bail, although Bangladesh law lays down, like in India, that if a criminal, a mujrim, does not have a lawyer because he cannot afford it, the court has to provide a lawyer. I'd also like to remind this young man that when we had our own 9/11 and we caught one of the culprits, we gave him a fair trial for 1 year. He had biryani at India's taxpayers' expense. He had lawyers to defend him until he was found guilty and executed. And the country that he came from, Pakistan, disowned him and said that he is not a Pakistani. So I would remind my guest from Bangladesh that as far as Sheikh Hasina is concerned, the extradition treaty clearly states that if she is going to be faced with certain death and humiliation,
Madam Mukherjee, I just want to have a question.
Maybe death by lynching at the airport itself, India certainly, as a law-abiding country which believes in rule of law, will never hand her over for certain death, lynching, an undignified death, God knows, as a woman, that is the fate that awaits her under the present interim regime of Bangladesh.
Muqtada Rashid, we had India's Foreign Secretary go across to Dhaka quite recently. There was an effort to try and bring the relationship which has been fraught back onto an even keel. And there seemed to be promise. I mean, it seemed that a lot of the rhetoric which we'd seen on both sides had come down. Now this move emerges, which again takes tensions between both countries to another level. It complicates issues. Could this not be avoided?
I don't think it's a complicated issue at all, because it's a very regular process when a criminal who is involved with so many kind of crimes. So it is the formal duty for any country to when they have a treaty with other country to seek extradition. So that is what the Bangladesh is doing. But I'm saying that whether Sheikh Hasina is getting justice, whether it is in Bangladesh, whether it is through the Bangladeshi court or through the international procedure. So internationally, she should get justice by any means. There is no doubt about it. But whenever we are talking about the Bangladesh and India relation, I don't think that Sheikh Hasina is one of the main issue or only the issue we need to discuss with. we think we should have lots of issues. We have the trade partnership, we have the cultural affinity. I always say that we must continue other issues. She could be one of the issues that we need to discuss. And it is not the tension, there is no tension with her. That could be one of the issues right now. And we don't think we should go with only Sheikh Hasina's extradition. We have many other issues, including how we can, Seven Sisters is one of the key issues. We have to, bring peace there, and we have to get more involvement, more investment there. So we need transportation. We need, business prospect there. We need, we have the Lucas policy for Modi government. So we have to expand this, and we have to join that process. If we talk only about Sheikh Hasina, I don't think that will be really, really good for us. We must think jointly. We have lots of issues, and at the same time, I would humbly disagree with Mrs. Mukherjee, diplomat Mukherjee, that Sheikh Hasina should be brought to justice, whether it is in India, whether it is in Bangladesh, whether it is in Hague. She should be justice. She should be brought to the justice by any means. And this is the desire of Bangladeshi people.
Okay, just 1 second. Tarakarta, there is also the entire perspective of India's self-interest. Sheikh Hasina has had an extraordinary relationship with India. She's really built the relationship between Dhaka and Delhi over the last several decade plus. And therefore, the fact is that in our foreign policy, we don't betray our friends, right? We don't betray those who've come to our country seeking our help. When the Dalai Lama came to our country seeking help, we didn't turn the Dalai Lama away, did we? Right? Here is a woman who had to flee from her country because she was minutes away from being lynched. A friend of India who's built that relationship. Is it not ultimately about New Delhi's own value system, that you don't do some things to your friends?
I absolutely agree, Vishnu. I mean, what would our neighbors think? This thing is an ongoing process, political process around the neighborhood. You've backed certain people. If you want them to remain your friends, then you have to show commitment to those who stood by you, right? That is a basic factor in terms of relations with any state. Incidentally, I just want to mention, Sheikh Hasina was sent here by her own army. That is something we tend to forget. They sent her out for her own safety. She's safe here. And that's it. I mean, that's where international law remains, that she would be subject to very dangerous, like I said, a terrible court system. But, this is not so much about India, Bangladesh itself. I think it is also about what Bangladesh wants to achieve in future. I mean, they have every right to want a new change. They want new things to happen. These are the students at the helm of things. They want a lot of. They're not bothered terribly of what happened in 1971. All that is their right, and I would wish that they would go on with this, as the previous speaker spoke very well in terms of how it benefits us to cooperate with each other for the good of Bangladesh and for the good of India, right? But the problem is, there are individuals inside the government, and we can see that happening, who are trying to spoil India-Bangladesh relations. And I suspect that this demand for extradition is one such effort. It is an effort to spoil relations. It's not so much anything else. And if that is the case, then I would probably be a little cautious as to how we handle this. Because Bangladesh is important for us. Well, all our neighbors are important for us. So you might want to, sort of, what shall I say? You need to give promise your friendship there and then. I mean, that's a given. But we need to be very careful. Perhaps she should not be allowed to speak from here.
Okay.
I mean, that would be one thing.
Major Razaul Karim, I think other panelists were also suggesting it's all very well for Bangladesh to want whatever they want, whether it's the extradition of Sheikh Hasina or something else. But it is one issue among many issues which exist between our countries. Is that not a more pragmatic way forward? There are other issues also which haven't been resolved between India and Bangladesh. Water sharing, for example. This might be another important issue that needs to perhaps be discussed going forward. Does this need to be a showstopper?
Yeah, surely. Actually, for Bangladesh and India relationships, if you look back, 1971, then there were some agreements at the regime of at the time of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and after that, actually most of the agreement with India-Bangladesh relationship happened at the time of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and then at the time of Sheikh Hasina. And if I answer to Mrs. Mukherjee, that actually, yes, India had a very good relationship with Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and Sheikh Hasina. Did India maintain the same at the time of other head of the state with General Ershad, then Madam Khaleda Zia, then if I mention about the current government, actually, if we look back our history, then we will find that India was always maintaining on-eyed relationship with Awami League or Awami government Sheikh Hasina, not with other government. India should give more focus on the national interest of Bangladesh, especially the common people what they want. Right now, the movement or the revolution what we have seen, actually it is not a political movement. It was all-out movement by the students. So they were not biased, politically biased by any single political party. Rather, they are the spokesperson of the nation. So this is the right time for India to make a sound relationship with Bangladesh, impartial relationship with Bangladesh, and thereby we should review some agreements.
All
some
right.
there were some.
Sure, Major, hold on for 1 second. I need to wrap this up by going to Ambassador Mukherjee for her last comments. Ma'am, 1 minute to you. How would you respond to that India has not been impartial, that we put all our eggs in one basket, we back Sheikh Hasina, we needed to have reached out to other political forces in Bangladesh over the last several decades?
Well, I would just like to respond by saying that in the first instance, India stood by the erstwhile East Pakistan when it was struggling against the Pakistan genocide. Our people and our armed forces fought for the liberation of what became Bangladesh. Subsequently, we stood by Bangladesh as far as development cooperation is concerned. We stood by Bangladesh through thick and through thin. If there were regimes that did not believe in that relationship the way we did, that cannot be laid at the feet of India. I would certainly also like to remind him that we don't know if the students are the representatives of the Bangladeshi people until they win free and fair elections and come to power. Nobody can call themselves self-appointed representatives of the Bangladeshi people, and the same is equally true in India. In a democracy, you prove your democratic credentials and the support of the people by coming to power. Let them form a party, let them participate in elections, and if they come to power, then we will engage with them as the true representative of the Bangladeshi people. In the meantime, we would continue to urge upon the people of Bangladesh that they understand that ours is a time-tested relationship. Bangladesh is surrounded on three sides by India. We have always tried to be helpful, but if they start lynching minorities, regardless of whether they are Hindus or Ahmadiyas or Christians or Buddhists, if they behave in a manner which is inimical to their own constitution, then surely they should understand the challenges that lie ahead. It is a much bigger problem than Sheikh Hasina. That I agree with him. It's a much bigger problem.
We'll leave it over there. Tenuous times for India and Bangladesh. Let's hope that common sense prevails.